Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and this week's Reddit challenge is Apollo style. So, well, it's Apollo style. We're going to fly to the moon Apollo style. Now, I've done this a million times before. You know the drill. You take a 3-man capsule, you put it on a big orbiter. You have a landing module which carries 2 Kerbals. You get into orbit, you land using the lander, and it then returns to Munar orbit, docks with the parent ship, and then the whole lot goes home. So yeah, I spent a lot of time designing that. The important thing I spent a lot of time on actually was hard mode, which is of course bringing a rover. I figured that since I actually did this, did the whole guide on how to put rovers down on surfaces, I probably should actually do this just to demonstrate that it is practical. So yeah, we're bringing along a rover and another gizmo as well to balance it out. Remember how I said you can balance all these things out? Well, we have one rover and we have one other gizmo, which I'll show you when I'm actually on the moon. The rest of the rocket below the actual the main lifter stage is not very Apollo-like. I'm frankly ashamed to include that in an Apollo challenge, but I spent so much time on the rest of the rocket, including that escape tower, which I just jettisoned, that I just couldn't be bothered building out a proper Apollo-style rocket. And especially since I would have some major trouble fitting all that stuff into the fairings. You know, rovers are a whole lot larger than the lander cabin that we would expect for the moon. Anyway, yeah, we get ourselves up and we practically find that as we're setting up our circularization maneuver, that it basically is close enough to the burn position for the moon that we might as well just forget about circularizing and go straight to the moon. This is using the Rockomax Poodle engine. That's going to do the majority of our in-space maneuvering, getting us places. And we'll ditch it eventually and drop it onto the lunar surface just to make sure that it doesn't form any space junk. But there we go, it's going to be a 900 plus meter second burn. Geoffrey, Jebediah and Kenori Kerman are the crew for this mission, and they will be drawing straws, no doubt, to decide who gets to stay behind in the command module, because there's only room for 2 in the lander. Although Jebediah has volunteered to sit on one of the exterior seats on the rover, but I'm not sure his helmet would fit. It might be a little close to the rocket exhaust. But anyway, look, we've got ourselves onto our encounter. We'll just get that a little closer. Once again, throwing caution to the wind. Who needs a free return trajectory when we can actually get close to the target and get ourselves more efficient encounter? Because efficiency wins lots of points here. So yeah, the Reddit challenge, as I said, our hard mode requires putting a rover down. Now, Apollo 15 was the first Apollo mission to actually bring the rover to the surface, and it was strapped to the side. That was, I'm trying to think, it was James Irwin and, who else? I forget. Dave Scott. Dave Scott was the commander. The command module pilot was Al Worden as well. So yeah, it was Irwin and Scott that basically landed on the surface and got to do all these, you know, drive around in the lunar module, the lunar rover, and overheat things and everything. There we go, getting ourselves into orbit. We still have loads of fuel in this tank. In fact, we have way too much fuel, so I'm going to try and use as much of this as possible. So there we go. Just bring this down now. We're going to bring it into like a 30 kilometer orbit. I think a 30 kilometer orbit is pretty good. That's still relatively high compared to, you know, for scaling reasons, let's say. But given that the mountains on the surface can be pretty high, we don't want to get in that close. Just circularize this even more, and we're ready to transfer the crew. So yeah, let's bring them across. We'll bring one of the white suits over. Get in. And yes, we've got to bring Jeb. Although you can't tell from the outside, that is indeed Jebediah. We need his skills for the landing. I like how the the toroidal tanks there seem to be glistening as if they're containing some sort of like fire. It just makes it look as if there's a fire down there all the time. Okay, so we're gonna fly across, just surveying the moon. We're doing one extra orbit here. I'm just kind of taking a look to figure out what I'm doing. Then I'm bringing the orbit down. And we're going to go in for our final approach. I'm just arranging the staging here because the way it was set up, I was going to accidentally fire an engine that I wasn't supposed to. So just making sure I adjust the staging so we don't have a problem there. We still have this thing attached because, hey, it's free fuel. But also, I want to put it down close enough that we actually get to see it crashing into the moon. You know, we've been told to make sure that everything is destroyed. No evidence remains. So therefore, we're going to see this with our own eyes. But that's mainly because we like the sign. We like the sound that it makes, except we can't hear it on the moon. We like the flames that it should make, even though it shouldn't make fire in a vacuum. It's just going to explode, right? Seriously. There we go. Let's drop that off. And ditch that, fire up the main engine, and that is our command module. I like the way it spins off as well, just trying to look exceptionally stylish. It's getting extra points from the judging crew, no doubt. So we're just gonna kill our velocity, and there you see, look, you see the shadow? There we go, and yes, excellent. I think we're coming in a little flat here. Let's make sure we don't crash. Okay, just kill lateral velocity and bring ourselves down. We're using the LV909, the little one, and we are feeding that from 3 of the half-size tanks. We also have toroidal tanks in there, but look, you see, we have ridiculous amounts of fuel. We totally messed that up. I guess the transfer stage was far too big, really. I could have cut down the size of my launcher quite a lot here. I think you're really supposed to drop the stage that you use to do the transmuner injection on a trajectory that will hit the moon. And that's us down! Excellent! And so let's get Jebediah out. Come on, I'll let you make sure we bring the ladder out. Jebediah, the hero of the Kerbal. The hero of the Kerbal family. Yes. Oh, crap, yes. Well, it's a good thing that they didn't have a camera on that. He's going to have to set the camera up. In fact, he'll set up the flag first as well. Here we go. I claim this moon in the name of the Kerbals. What should we call it? We brought stuff. We brought a car too. Okay, now let's get that car off. So you see it's attached to the side there. And we can decouple it. Now, this only has one seat. I tried repeatedly to get a rover that was in this form factor with 2 seats, but I found that the rover would literally spontaneously explode. Now, on the other side, there's another gizmo. We'll show that later. It looks like well, it's kind of like a probe, but it has ladders attached. I think you know what I think you already know by now what this is all about. So yeah, he should be able to get in and demonstrate this drives. Yay! Jebediah about to get his first interplanetary speeding ticket. What shall we do? We'll take off the brakes first. See, it uses electric charge, charges up from the solar power, and there's a bunch of batteries there. Let's hide behind that big rock and confuse the other guy. Play hide and seek, right? That's what astronauts... We're sending astronauts to the moon so they can play hide and seek behind the giant rocks. There we go. It looks pretty good actually as a tiny little rover. Yeah, I don't know, there was some bizarre problem that if I put the 2 seats on either side by side or in line, it didn't matter how far apart them or how close they were, they would just everything would start wobbling and the whole thing would explode. So I had to resort to a 1-seater version of this. You note that I put the attachment points for the wheels really high up so that he kind of sits low down. We get a nice low center of gravity here. And actually, it it drives pretty well. Unlike a lot of rovers, it doesn't want to flip over nearly as much. I'm quite enjoying this as a vehicle compared to many others. Now, for this other gizmo, I'm going to need a volunteer. Actually, I need the dude in the command module, because we need two guys on this. Oh wow, he's just going to spin around in a circle here. Come on, let's go and get on this. Yeah, you see, this has ladders on the side, and it's designed for Kerbals to hang off the side. There's a little rocket motor in there, and to make it balanced, we obviously need one Kerbal on each side. Now, what this is supposed to be is an incarnation of LES, the Lunar EScape System. And the idea is, say this command module, or the lunar excursion module, had some sort of critical failure which meant that it could not return, then NASA had this idea that they would have an emergency spacecraft that could be built and fueled using fuel from the actual lunar module, and they could fly this thing into orbit and get rescued. It would obviously lack amenities that were on the regular lunar modules, such as, guidance computers and, a breathable atmosphere, but, the astronauts would have 4 hours. They would launch up, and if they could get on there, yes, they would have 4 hours in which the command module pilot would have to rendezvous with them and rescue them from their fate, which would be a slow suffocation in lunar orbit, because of course this is a real concept. It never actually went to the moon, but they spent a lot of time, investigating. However, I can demonstrate this thing flying around. It does have more than enough delta V to bring this crew up into orbit safely. But I can just kind of use it to fly around the surface. Look at it. It looks pretty good like that, huh? They can go and investigate some targets. We can boost it up or something. I'm just going to demonstrate that it flies nice and slowly over the surface here. And with those struts, it's actually pretty tough. The struts are, of course, exceptionally tough, and you can use those as... you can use those to absorb the impact of practically anything if you want. Oh, yeah, not the easiest thing to control. Although, actually, it is very easy to control with SAS and everything. The hard part, I guess, is just knowing what way is the correct way. I should have put a big arrow on it so I knew what way was north or what way was up, so it would get the torque and everything all correct. Yes, an exceptionally inefficient way to travel around the moon when you have the rover there. But maybe there's, maybe if we're by an arch, this would be a great way to go and investigate, the arch from all angles. Okay, so we've traveled maybe less than 100 yards, or 100 meters. Let's travel back now. See if we can, how close we can put it. Not close enough that we gets knocked over. That would be unfortunate. Yeah, there we go. So, you're just skipping around across the surface. It's actually, I'm flying this slower than the rover. Although it in theory is capable of travelling much faster, I think it would have a great potentiality for, death and destruction. And therefore, since this is a challenge, I don't want to screw it up. So let's put this down gently, and we shall send our crew home. And for that, I shall re-invoke time acceleration. Yes, back to 4 times time acceleration, because this is now back into post-commentary time. Get him on, and get him on. And now this is just set up very similar to Apollo style, the Apollo lunar module style, because it has a separate engine for leaving the moon. It has one engine for landing and a weaker engine for lifting off. It leaves the base behind. So that's what we're going to do. We just need to get this thing close enough, ditch the extra mass that those things have. And 80 kilometers out. Well, yes, time acceleration seems to cause things sitting on the surface to spontaneously explode. And there we go, look! It's got one of those new, what do you call those? One of those new tiny engines. The new Rockomax miniature orange tiny thing. It's boosting us into orbit. And we're just going to try and match orbits with this thing, ASAP. And oh, we're getting pretty close. So I'm adjusting. See how what I'm doing is adjusting my thrust above and below the plane to try and bring the close approach close to the ascending or the descending node in this case. Oh, the ascending node. There we go. Yes, I wouldn't know the ascend of a node from the descend of the node. Aha. Yes, never mind. Okay, so just the circularization burn is going to be set up to bring us within 400 meters. We'll do a bit of messing around with that, but hopefully not too much. Do that burn and just circularize. How close are we? 0.8. 0.8. So we just need some more adjusting here. 0.5, 0.4, 0.3. Okay, might be that we need to adjust the inclination. I don't know. Let's try that. Now, never mind. I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to leave it parked in the north orientation. And that should make it easier to dock with. Now, it's time to go back to the command module. And this guy finally, the mission is in his hands because he has to perform the docking. He's finally about to earn his salary. Not that I pay my guys anything, but hypothetically, if they were getting paid, he would be earning his salary. Yes. So we're just going to orbit around and wait for that close approach. Once we're at that close approach, we're going to try and dock. And I think for since I've docked a million times, I'm going to try a docking from within the command module this time, or from the IVA only. So what we're going to do, turn that on, do some minor adjustments, get there, and then we're going to try and cruise in close. So there we go. Okay, so now we're just doing everything for using the information that is presented on this nav ball. And so I'm moving towards it at about 1 meter per second. And as you see, because I'm moving slowly, the curvature of the orbit means that this thing will drift. And so I keep making corrections. Unfortunately, double clicking on the window seems to have removed my target, but I got that back, not a problem. Getting in closer still, so we're now moving at about 2 meters per second. And just keeping these things adjusted. Now I'm really close. I want to kill the velocity, and we'll switch to using RCS to perform the actual rendezvous. So there it is there. We need to come out to actually target the docking port, and that brings up this little the docking navigation aid the Navyfish created. So I'm going to use this and see if I can't dock this. Oh look, I can see the moon at the top there. You know what? I completely did not realize the moon was there when I was doing this previously. I was just like, floating around through space. And I'm trying to keep the docking alignment marker correct. Just moving this across. I think the spacecraft may actually be rotating a little, because I left it pointed in the north-south direction, and it seems to be rotating away from that very slowly. So apparently I'm trying to dock with a rotating target, which is fun. But just trying to juggle both the nav ball and the the docking alignment system, and I can see the object there. I think I might be a little high, might be a little low, I don't know. Oh, there, we got something. We are docked. We are successfully docked. It is time to bring the crew home. And while they're doing this, there was a bunch of things that they actually did while they were in orbit. They had a handheld satellite that they deployed on a couple of the Apollo missions. They just basically threw these things out, and they were mostly for examining. Well, one of the most interesting things was they discovered the gravitational potential of the moon, and they discovered that there were only a certain number of stable orbits. The other thing they had to do during EVA was they had to go and retrieve a film canister from the back of the spacecraft. So that would take like 40 minutes to do this thing. But anyway, we've got our injection, our return button burn. We're heading back, and we're aiming for the surface of Kerbal. Now, the thing is, we have to hit ocean, and this is the kind of harder thing. I'm going to ditch this and bring it down to like a 30-kilometer thing. Now, you see it says 7 hours and 30 minutes. That means that the planet is going to rotate 1 1/4 times, and if you looked, the extra quarter will bring me slightly west or east of the Kerbal Space Center. So I think I'm right on the money here. So since we're on our final approach, we got to ditch this. And unfortunately, because of the staging, I thought I activated the parachutes. So I sent this guy out to repack them. But apparently you can't repack a parachute that hasn't actually been deployed yet. So yeah, that would be a nice thing to fix. There should be like a deployed but not actually, or ready to be deployed state, which you can undo. That'd be kind of nice. Because I really don't like deploying parachutes into, you know, a jet stream, a stream of air that is being shock heated to several thousand degrees Celsius. No, that's not a good plan at all. Also, this only has 2 parachutes, whereas of course the Apollo missions had 3, but Apollo 15 only actually landed on 2 good parachutes. The third one had collapsed. So, as a matter of realism, this one's actually doing pretty well since it brought the rover and it landed on 2 parachutes. But that is the challenge. That is hard mode, and you know, maybe a little harder mode because I brought the little fly thing. Regardless, I'm quite happy with that. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.